I swear I can still hear the champagne cork pop. That smug little pop, followed by fake laughter and the sound of my family toasting to the new chapter in their lives. The new chapter they thought didn't include me. I was standing right there in the corner of my late father's living room, just out of sight. I'd flown in from Chicago for what I thought was going to be a solemn, family-only reading of his will. Instead, it turned into the most gut-punching slap in the face I've ever experienced. The lawyer had just announced it. My name wasn't in the will. Not a cent, not a scrap of property, not even the cheap watch my dad wore every day. My two brothers, Nathan and Dylan, and my Aunt Lorraine got everything. My dad's house in Santa Fe, his savings, even the cabin he and I used to fish at every summer. All of it. And the kicker? They didn't even look surprised. They knew. They'd known for weeks. I just stood there, frozen, feeling my throat tighten like I'd swallowed glass. And then I heard Dylan say it loud enough for everyone to hear. Well, she never really contributed to the family anyway. Dad wanted his legacy to go to the people who actually cared. The people who actually cared? Are you fucking kidding me? I was the one who took care of Dad when his health started to fail. I was the one driving him to chemo, sitting with him at 2 a.m. when the pain wouldn't let him sleep. And these greedy bastards, these leeches, were the ones who actually cared. The room was buzzing with laughter and clinking glasses while I stood there, invisible in my own family. Nathan's wife Madison was gushing about how they could finally redo the backyard now. Aunt Lorraine was already talking about renting out the cabin for extra cash. It was like watching vultures circle a corpse, except the corpse was my father's memory, and they were tearing it apart before it was even cold in the ground. And you know what I did? Nothing. I smiled. I congratulated them. I let them think they'd won. Because they had no idea, absolutely no idea that I had the one thing they didn't. The one thing that would make them regret ever celebrating so soon. But I'll get to that. First, you need to know how this whole twisted mess started and why I was already prepared to burn every single one of them to the ground. I kept my face calm, but inside I was screaming. Every muscle in my jaw was clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. I could taste blood on my tongue from biting it. I let them talk. I let them clink their glasses and pat each other on the back like they just pulled off some genius heist. I didn't cry. I didn't storm out. Hell, I didn't even let my voice shake when Nathan finally turned to me with that fake innocent smirk and said, "Sorry, Harper, guess Dad just had a different vision for his estate." A different vision. That's how he spun robbing me blind. I raised my glass, an untouched flute of champagne that I had no intention of drinking, and I said, "Well, congratulations, everyone. I hope you get exactly what you deserve." They laughed. They thought I was being bitter and sarcastic. They didn't realize that every word I said was a promise. See, here's the thing about people who think they've already won. They stop looking over their shoulders, they get sloppy, they talk too much, they trust the wrong people. And when they least expect it, that's when you gut them. So I stood there smiling, like the loyal little black sheep they'd written out of the family, and let them dig their own graves with every greedy word. Because what they didn't know, what not one of them knew, was that my father's real legacy wasn't sitting in that well. And when they finally found out where it was, it would be far too late to save themselves. To understand why my so-called family felt so comfortable screwing me over, you need to know what kind of people they are. And spoiler alert, they've always been snakes. I grew up in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in this big Adobe-style house my dad built with his own hands. He was a self-made man, a contractor who worked insane hours but still made it home for dinner every night. My mom passed when I was 12, so it was just Dad, me, my two older brothers Nathan and Dylan, and my dad's sister Lorraine, who lived a few streets away. Nathan and Dylan were golden boys, the kind of sons who could do no wrong in Dad's eyes when we were kids, but only because they were experts at hiding their crap. I was the one who'd get grounded for a C+, while Nathan was sneaking out to parties and Dylan was borrowing cash from Dad's wallet. But the real shift happened when Dad's health started to go downhill. It was like the moment he got diagnosed, my brothers and Lorraine saw dollar signs instead of a sick man who needed family. Guess who was at every chemo session? Guess who learned how to change IV bags and drove him to specialist appointments 2 hours away in Albuquerque? Me. Guess who was suddenly too busy because of work stuff and family obligations? Them. And Lorraine? Oh, Lorraine is the queen of fake sympathy. She'd come over with casseroles just so she could take photos with Dad for Facebook, posting captions like, "Cherishing these moments with my amazing brother." Meanwhile, I was the one up at 3 a.m. cleaning up after he got sick. I knew they were selfish. I knew they were lazy. But I didn't know how dirty they could play until one afternoon about 6 months before Dad died. I came home early from the grocery store and heard voices in the living room. It was Lorraine, Nathan, and Dylan. They didn't notice I was in the hallway. And I heard her say, "We need to make sure the will is airtight this time. If Harper gets her hands on the house, she'll just waste it. Your dad always wanted his sons to carry on the family name, not her." They laughed. They fucking laughed. I wanted to storm in and scream at them, but I froze, because something told me it was better to listen than to tip my hand. That was the first moment I realized I needed a plan. From that day on, every time I was at the house, I kept my ears open, and what I heard over the next few months would make your skin crawl. They weren't just planning to cut me out, they were already divvying up his stuff. Nathan was talking about flipping the cabin for a quick profit. Dylan wanted to rent out Dad's workshop. Lorraine? She was already making a list of furniture she wanted to claim before the will was even read. And I remember thinking, okay, if that's the game they want to play, then I'll learn the rules, and I'll make sure I'm the one dealing the cards. They thought I was just the quiet, dutiful daughter who'd roll over and take it. But what they didn't know was that Dad and I had a few conversations they knew nothing about. Conversations that would change everything. And one in particular, let's just say it's the reason I didn't break down when that will was read.
It was about 3 months before Dad passed when he called me into his study. I'll never forget how he looked that day. Thin, pale, but with this sharpness in his eyes I hadn't seen in months. He had papers spread across his desk, some old photos, and an envelope with my name written on it. "Close the door, Harper," he said. Now, my dad wasn't the dramatic type. He was straight to the point, no fluff. So when he spoke in that low, measured tone, I knew it was serious. "I know you've been taking care of me more than anyone else, and I know what your brothers and Lorraine have been up to." I didn't even have to ask what he meant. The bitterness in his voice told me he'd caught wind of their little plotting sessions, too. Then he said something that made my stomach flip. "They think they're getting everything, and I'm going to let them think that." I must have looked like I'd swallowed a nail because he actually smiled, this tired but almost mischievous smile. "You've been here for me, Harper. You've earned more than they ever will. But what I want to give you, it's not something I want them to know about until the time is right." He slid the envelope toward me. "This isn't everything. It's just the first key." Inside was a single safety deposit box key and a handwritten note with a bank name and location I'd never heard of. Not in Santa Fe, not even in New Mexico. The bank was in Durango, Colorado. I asked him what was in it, and he just shook his head. "Some things are better when they're a surprise. You'll understand when you see it. But don't open it until I'm gone. And whatever you do, don't breathe a word to anyone. Not even Madison, whom she was referring to Nathan's wife, who, honestly, could win an Olympic medal for gossip. That conversation burned into my memory, especially in the weeks that followed. Dad's health declined fast. My brothers came around more often, but always with Lorraine in tow, and always with some angle, like, Dad, why don't we talk about updating your accounts? Or maybe it's time to simplify the estate paperwork. I could see them trying to manipulate him. And to be fair, Dad played the part of the tired old man pretty damn well. He didn't argue. He didn't tip his hand. He just nodded along like he trusted them with everything. The night before he died, he called me into his room again. He could barely talk above a whisper, but I heard every word. Remember, Harper, patience is a weapon. Let them think they've won. And when the time comes, you'll know what to do. I held his hand, not realizing that would be the last piece of advice he'd ever give me. So, when the will was read and my name wasn't on it, I didn't flinch. I didn't need it to be, because I had the key. And trust me, what was waiting for me in that safety deposit box was worth more than every dollar, every property, and every fake sentimental heirloom they just toasted to. The only question now was how to make sure they knew exactly what they'd lost and make it hurt.
2 weeks after the will reading, I packed an overnight bag, told no one where I was going, and drove north. The whole way to Durango, my brain kept running in circles. What the hell could be in that box that was worth all of the secrecy? Was it money? Gold? Some old family heirloom my brothers didn't even know existed? The bank was this old brick building with a green awning, the kind of place that looked like it hadn't changed since the 70s. I walked in, handed the clerk the key, and signed a couple of forms. She gave me this polite little smile and said, "Right this way, Miss Caldwell." They took me into a quiet room with a single table and a chair. The clerk placed the box in front of me, nodded, and left. My hands were shaking, not from nerves, but from this weird mix of grief and adrenaline. I slid the key in, turned it, and opened the lid. On top was a leather folder with my name embossed in gold. Inside, I'll be honest, my breath caught. It wasn't cash. It wasn't jewelry. It was documents, stacks of them. Property deeds, shares in companies I'd never heard of, and something else, a notarized letter from Dad explaining everything. Turns out, my father had investments. Big ones. Rental properties across Colorado, shares in a construction supply company, and a silent partnership in a ski resort. None of it was tied to his main estate in Santa Fe. None of it was listed in the will, and all of it was mine. The letter spelled out he'd transferred ownership quietly over the past few years, putting it under a holding company with me as the sole beneficiary. The safety deposit box held every piece of legal proof. And at the very end, his handwriting got shakier, but the words were crystal clear. By the time they realize what they missed, it'll be too late. Don't just enjoy this, Harper. Make sure they know exactly how much they fucked up. I sat there for a long time, running my fingers over the edges of those papers, letting it sink in. My brothers and Lorraine had toasted to their victory while I sat on something that made their inheritance look like pocket change. And in that moment, I decided I wasn't just going to quietly walk away with what was mine. No, I was going to make them choke on their own greed. The first step, get close enough that they never suspected I had a damn thing. The second, let them dig themselves into a hole so deep, I wouldn't even have to push them. They'd fall all on their own. And trust me, the opportunity came faster than I could have imagined. I didn't rush it. That's the thing about good revenge. You can't just swing a hammer the moment you find it. You have to sharpen it first. So I played the part. I let them think I was broke. I told friends I might have to sell my apartment in Chicago. I skipped family dinners, saying I couldn't afford the flight. I even let Madison accidentally overhear me telling a friend I was job hunting. I knew that gossip would spread faster than wildfire.
And it worked. The pitying smiles at Christmas, the condescending, "How are you holding up?" messages from Lorraine, they were eating it up. Then Nathan called one afternoon with an offer that almost made me laugh out loud. "Hey, Harper, so Dylan and I have been talking. We know you've been struggling, and we might be able to help you out. You know, if you're willing to sign off on a few family property adjustments." Translation: they wanted me to co-sign some shady real estate flip they were doing so they could get a better loan rate. I played dumb, asked if it was risky, and Nathan said the line I'd been waiting for. "Don't worry. If anything goes wrong, it won't touch you." Yeah, right. I told him I'd think about it. Then I called my attorney. Over the next month, I quietly moved pieces into place. I had the holding company make an offer on the exact piece of land they were trying to buy, anonymously, through a third party. The bank bit. Their financing deal fell apart overnight. Nathan and Dylan scrambled, but I made sure every other investor they approached mysteriously pulled out. All the while, I was still poor, pitiful Harper to them. The final blow came at a family barbecue Lorraine hosted in the spring. She loved showing off, and I knew the whole crew would be there. Halfway through dinner, I stood up, clinked my glass, and said, "I actually have some good news to share." They all turned, expecting me to announce I'd gotten a job at Target or something. Instead, I laid it out. Every property, every share, every dollar my father had left me. I explained the holding company, the safety deposit box, and then I pulled out copies of the deeds for the properties that they'd been drooling over. "Turns out," I said, smiling, "Dad wanted his legacy to go to the person who actually cared. Guess that's me." The silence was delicious. Nathan's face went crimson. Dylan's jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth might snap. Lorraine? She looked like she was trying not to throw up on her potato salad. I didn't stick around for the fallout. I just left them there, choking on the taste of their own greed. As I drove away, I thought about Dad's last words to me. Let them think they've won. And damn, did they ever. Right up until the moment they lost everything. So tell me, was I wrong for making them pay like that? Or was it exactly what they deserved? Here's an update from 6 weeks later. So, remember how I said I left them at that barbecue choking on their own greed? Well, apparently they're still choking. Nathan and Dylan's little real estate sure thing officially went belly up. The land they were trying to grab? My holding company bought it and flipped it to a developer for nearly triple, and they still don't know it was me behind it. They're blaming each other, their lawyer, even the economy. Lorraine tried to reach out last week. By reach out, I mean send me a 3-paragraph email about how families should stick together and how she never meant for things to get so out of hand. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to my attorney just in case she tries anything stupid. Madison, Nathan's wife, apparently spilled the whole barbecue scene to half of Santa Fe. The gossip mill's been working overtime, and now my brothers are the punchline at every neighborhood poker night. Meanwhile, I've been quietly renovating one of the Colorado cabins Dad left me. I'm thinking of turning it into a women's-only retreat, a place for women who've been screwed over by toxic families, shitty partners, or fake friends to get a break, reset, and remember who the hell they are. Feels like the best kind of full-circle revenge. And if my brothers ever drive by and see my name on the sign out front, well, I might just raise a glass and toast to their new chapter. So that's how the black sheep they tried to erase ended up holding the winning hand the whole damn time. They thought they'd humiliated me. They thought they'd taken everything. But all they really did was set me up for the sweetest victory of my life. Now, I'm curious. If you were in my shoes, would you have done the same? Or would you have just walked away quietly with what was yours? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you've ever been screwed over by people who thought they could get away with it, tell me your story. I want to hear it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, hit that like button, and share this with someone who needs to know that karma is patient. Because trust me, it always arrives. And sometimes it shows up in the most beautiful way.